Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to our listeners across the globe, and welcome to Chartered Accountants Worldwide Difference Makers Discuss. I'm delighted today to be joined by our member from the Institute of Chartered Accountants Singapore, Lem Chin Kok. I'm going to let Lem do his own introduction, but we are talking to Lem today on the basis that he has had a career in the police force, in cybersecurity, in forensics, and now is CEO of an AI-first technology firm based in Singapore. So Lem is going to talk to us about all those things that I think we know we need to be aware of and involved in: cyber, AI, forensics, but maybe we don't know as much as we should. So Lem, good afternoon to you. And
Good
I
morning to you.
have not, thank you very much. I have not done you justice with the introduction. So please give us a little bit of a potted history from your start. You started off in the police force and to where you are today.
Thank you. So Sanit, thanks for having me here. Yeah, I started as a police officer some 30 years ago, or more than 30 years ago now. And you probably don't believe it when you dial 999, I'll be in the fast response car to the crime scene. That's actually my first posting. And subsequently, I got posted into the commercial crime investigation squad, where I do all the white-collar crime investigation. So I was there for 5 to 6 years, I believe. And subsequently, then when KPMG in Singapore started out with their forensic team, I then joined the forensic team. And I've been there since, and I just retired from KPMG after a good 23 years. And guess what? When I retired, we have a team of about 100 strong forensic professionals. And it may sound like a small number to you, but in a very, very small country like Singapore, where the crime rate is low, it's actually quite a fairly big team that we have here. And I'm now the CEO of Arts that I founded, and we are operating since a good 8 months now. Yeah, so this is my background.
Wow. Okay. So there's a huge amount here to unpack. I want to go back to the fast moving car with the blue lights and all that. There's not many accountants I talk to that have started their career as a cop.
Yeah.
Did you start to train as an accountant when you were in the police force, or which came first?
Actually, I started the interest before. And basically, those were the years where we really have to earn and we have to study. And as such, I signed on in the police force as a full-time professionals in the police force. And during that time, I took up part-time studies again to further prepare myself for the world of accountancy. Yeah.
Fantastic. And okay, so you went into, as you called it, the white collar, to investigate white collar crime. Tell us a little bit about that. Is that very much behind the desk, kind of pouring through? No. Okay.
Yeah, police force is never behind the desk. So we have to do so for example, cheating cases, there is criminal breach of trust cases, forgery cases. So we have to be at the scene, we have to be talking to witnesses, we have to be talking to the accused person, we have to charge the accused person in court, and we got to appear in court. Yeah, so it's very interesting. And back then, guess what? We were using typewriter. I don't know, a lot of the listener now probably don't know how a typewriter looks like. Yeah, but that's back then, we were still using typewriter.
Really? So you were collating all the kind of the records and all the rest on typewriters. Seriously, Lem, you don't look old enough to be able to talk like that. But okay, so you've obviously seen a huge progression in the use of technology, and I mean, let's start with that. You know, going from typewriter,
From
why go? Yeah, from both extremes. What was, I mean, I'm not going to ask the question, what was the biggest jump that you've seen? But you know, I mean, you've obviously got typewriters, computers, the boom in data, and then you went headlong into forensics. Is there any kind of snippets you can bring out to the audience that were the key
Yeah,
ones?
so basically when I started my career in KPMG in the forensic team, and back then, you know, it's tough because the team it was really small back in those days. And we really need to differentiate ourselves. And back then, in my mind, you know, the easiest to differentiate ourselves is really through the use of technology. So we then bring in digital forensic, where we acquire evidence from an individual's computer, mobile phone, etc. We then brought in e-discovery, where we can ingest large amount of data, and from there we sieve out the evidence that is critical for our investigation. And we also go into forensic data analytics. So that's you know, our books and records, right? So it goes into millions or even billions of transactions, and how do we then use certain techniques to triangulate all these accounting books and records, all this data to identify, you know, potential problematic transactions, so to speak. And actually the highlight, you know, to maybe draw some link to what I'm doing now. So I'm very passionate with analytics. So I've been pushing for, you know, the analytics uh, processes, I think as far back as 18 years. And at about 15 years, that was the first time that I experienced AI. And you wouldn't believe what I've gone through. So I even hired professors from a university into the practice to find a new way to detect fraud. And I was hoping that if I can use some AI technology to identify fraud from huge amount of data sets. And what happened was we tried different ways. And one day, a very junior colleague of mine, in fact, she just joined us, if I recall correctly. And she joined us, and she saw me trying different ways, putting in a lot of time to find new ways to identify problematic transaction from huge volume of records. And he, you know, got his courage and came to my room and said, "Hey, you know, Lem, can you let me try something? I have this technique that I want to try." I said, "Are you sure?" Because we tried uh, you know, AI models, but in a lot of instances, you need labeled data. That means you need to know what is fraudulent and what is not fraudulent, and then the model will then train so that they can help to detect the next problematic data, problematic transactions. I mean, and because in the world of fraud, the same fraud don't happen twice. So then, you know, it's a kind of scenario where, you know, it's very difficult to get labeled data. But nonetheless, I say, okay, since you want to try, you know, you pull together a team, I then give the team a very huge data set. And after a while, they came back and they show me, "Oh, Lem, these are the 10 most unusual transactions out of the tens of millions of transactions," right? And when I look at it, I was like, I almost fell off my chair, but, you know, I hold myself and I asked her, I said, "Why are all these 10 transactions unusual?" And she was looking at me, she was like, "Lem, you know, we are using multiple dimensions of analysis, and the trillions of possibility. There's no way that you will know. So in a layman's term is that, 2-dimension is a picture, 3-dimension is an object, and can you visualize 4-dimension, 5 dimensions? But all these models go into 10, 20 dimensions, and which is why it's so powerful, right? Something that human can't comprehend, which, we can. And out of the top 10, I knew that 9 of them were actually real fraud cases charged in court. Not what I said, but charged in court. Okay, so so you have tens of millions of transactions. The model that the team built picked up 10 highly unusual transactions. And of the 10 highly unusual transactions, 9 of them were actually fraud cases that were charged in court. Yeah, so from then on, I was sold. So I have been pushing AI since then. But as you know, most of the time, the individual sitting opposite me will give me a dirty look. I typically leave the room feeling very lousy back then. But yeah, nobody knows what I'm talking about. Yeah, probably they thought I'm a con man.
Well, I mean, evidently, you were able to kind of see into the future before the rest could. Come here. What I find fascinating about that story is a couple of things. So, if I understand it correctly, and this is where sometimes different brains take longer to compute, it was a combination of skill sets that essentially came up with that finding. So it was potentially an accountant who understood what fraud looked like. There was maybe a technology expert. There was, you know, uh, and before I go on and say something wrong, was it a combination of different skill sets? And where does the accountant sit in that skill set formula?
Actually, you are spot on. Yeah, you're actually spot on. Yeah. So what happened is this, what the model, the technique that the team used at that time, is unsupervised machine learning model. So it's unsupervised. So what it then meant is that you don't need labeled data. So basically, a huge amount of data, the model will learn by itself. And the trick is that, because for us, we understand accounting books and records, how it functions. And we also, because as forensic professionals, we also understand how a fraudulent transaction will behave. And with these skill sets, our understanding of how books and records were maintained, and the underlying characteristic of fraud, we actually use this knowledge to build the features in the model. So predictive AI models is basically controlled by the features in there, and which is why there is unlimited permutation of how you can build the model. And basically, when we were sharpening it with our accountancy knowledge, bookkeeping knowledge, our knowledge of how the fraud characteristic, it was so accurate. So in short, we can have another data scientist with the same data set and try to run some models to identify fraud within this model. Very likely, the model won't perform as good as what my team at that time performed. Yeah.
Okay, so there's a lot of noise about AI and the profession, and there's two extreme views, and then there's a lot of views in the middle. And certainly in Ireland, there's been a rhetoric in the last few months where people have come out and said AI is going to make the accountant redundant in the future, and it's going to take all our jobs. And then you've got the others who are saying, well, look, that's absolute nonsense, because the accountants are needed to feed into the AI development, as you've just talked about. But B, what will happen is it'll reduce all the kind of manual tasks, and therefore let the accountants get on with doing the bigger things. I think I know where your view is, but how big is the opportunity of AI in the profession?
But to answer that question, I think it's somewhat in between. I
Okay.
think it's somewhat in between. So the whole value of AI that I see today is twofold. One is that because there are many kinds of AI models. So the examples that I gave you just now is a predictive model, the classical predictive model that has been around for the longest time, probably older than me. And what we have today that you saw, the ChatGPT, the DeepSeek, this is what we call the generative AI. So it's actually two different, two very distinct and different type of AI models. So basically, the classical AI models will enable auditor, accountant to predict, to identify the transactions that we need to identify in a way that is humanly impossible. Like, the example just now, we would have gone into high dimensional space. The model could be operating in 20 dimensions, 30 dimensions that it's just humanly not possible. And in the world today is actually quite important because our operating environment involve huge volume of transactions, right? So basically, you need, as accountant, I strongly recommend that you need to get into the technology so that out of the millions of transactions that you audit, it can help you identify certain transactions that you need to identify for your audit purposes, for example. Whereas on the other side, the generative AI space is really a productivity play. And basically it can, like what they say, a huge potential there is that it can help you take out the manual and mundane tasks so that accountant, auditor can perform higher value tasks. Because we also don't want to be bogged down by all the manual and mundane tasks, right? So the generative AI models that is becoming very, very popular these days, yeah, they actually have a real benefit of helping to take out all the manual and mundane tasks so that the accountant can perform the real job and the valuable job. So I think this will be central to our industry. One is to make us more effective in the current world, because I seriously don't believe that by picking samples randomly, it can help us a lot when you are dealing with millions and millions of transactions. So you need certain technique to help us to identify the transactions that we want to identify. And on the other hand, because you're dealing with millions and millions of transactions, and the kind of indirect administrative work on the auditor then becomes tremendous. So you also want to use certain technology to help you take away the manual and mundane tasks so that, we can focus on doing the important tasks.
Thank you, Lem. What you have just educated me in the last 4 minutes is probably something that I've struggled with for the last 10 years. You've explained it in a way that has made it very simple to me, and I appreciate that. Um, in that regard, I'm passionate about the next gen and what they need to be armed with to be a success in the profession. In that vein, do you feel we as a profession should be educating our accountants of today and tomorrow more in, I want to call it technology, I want to call it programming. I don't know what we call it, but what's your view?
Okay, so you know what? I make my entire team in the past when I was still in KPMG. I actually encourage everyone within the team to take up a third language, which is programming language. So you see, all these models are actually developed with a certain programming language. And to be honest, all this language, if I look at it in a very objective way, it is no difference from English language, Chinese language, Japanese language. So basically, the knowledge of an additional language will allow accountants, auditors to use the language to get what we want and to achieve what we want to achieve. So very similar in, we have English knowledge and we are able to communicate, we are able to write report. And likewise, if we are armed with programming language, looking at the situation with the data set of this particular client, with the risk and risk of this particular client, the processes of this particular client, I can then use my programming language to build certain model that is specific for this client. And when I apply the model, it can then help me as an accountant or auditor to detect transactions that I want to detect out of their millions and millions of transactions. So I have been talking about it with my peers, with my friends, that, I think we are in an era that we need knowledge of a third language or a second language. Actually, it's not just for accountant. I look at it as in for all industry.
Okay. That's fascinating. And as you were talking, I mean, accounting has been defined as the language of business or the international language of business. But what you're kind of saying is if you can layer on the tech language or the data language, then it opens up so much more. I think that's amazing. There's a couple of things I want to touch on. I think to listeners, it will be no surprise the way that you have taught us in the last few minutes and articulated to hear that you were the founder of the forensic diploma. Is that right, in the institute?
So I think it was about 8 years ago. Together with ISCA, we actually developed the financial forensic accounting qualification, and we launched it formally about 6 years ago, if I recall correctly. And it is actually the first applied learning financial forensic qualification developed by a professional body in this Asia Pacific region. So it's we actually focus on 3 key areas: the forensic accounting and investigation. The second area is on digital forensic. So, very much what I shared earlier, to get evidence from computers, mobile phone, to get evidence from large data sets, to apply models, algorithm, analytics to identify anomalies. So that kind of skills. And what's interesting is that we also have the third part, which is on financial crime, which is in the financial services sector is a lot of focus on money laundering investigations, sanctions investigations, misconduct, scams, etc. So it's a qualification that very, very broad and looks across a wide spectrum of how accountancy together with forensic practices can be applied in the industry. Yeah.
That's phenomenal. And is that something that accountants outside of Singapore can sign up for? Because as you said, your country is very clean country, but there's a lot of countries that could use this.
Yeah, so I still recall, probably a year back or 2 years back. So we started to go into partnership with the establishment, like for example, the Corruption Practices and Investigation Bureau, in Singapore, the Singapore Police Force, and also for Financial Intelligence and Investigation Bureau of the Hong Kong Police Force. So I think yeah, we back then when I'm still the chair of the oversight committee, we have been trying to sign partnership with not just entities within Singapore but also outside of Singapore.
Wow, congratulations, Lem. This is fascinating. I could talk to you forever, but we're coming up to the end of time. We may have to do a part 2 because I really do. I know that this topic is really key to members, and I know Chartered Accountants Worldwide did a survey, and AI was considered one of the most crucial issues facing the profession at the moment. But before we finish, I do want to talk a little bit about arts. You're CEO of the company. You're a founder. Tell us what your aims or ambitions or vision is for that.
Yeah, so for us really is to help our client to use AI in a way that it is not used before. So currently, if you look at AI, you think about the ChatGPT, the DeepSeek, but in the enterprise world, actually there are many other creative ways to use AI. And what we really want to do is to help enterprises derive significant real world benefit from AI. As of now, maybe you're aware as well, AI is very much skewed towards the consumer market. So as consumer, my family members, they love it because it is quite useful. But the randomness of the technology, when you try to apply it for an enterprise, is really very difficult. I don't know whether you're aware, if you have you and your colleagues, maybe 3 or 4 of you have the same prompt and you try to press enter key together in the same application, the answers that comes back is all different. So what it then meant is that that the technology is actually by nature very random. And in the enterprise world where you have your policies, your procedures, the last thing you want is that your 5,000 staff doing whatever they want, right? Yeah. So what arts is in fact, we have a patented technology and we trademarked it as well. It's called the Gen AI Twin. So basically, this is a technology that is using AI in a way that is not seen before. So what can it do? Maybe as my parting message to our audience here. Basically, Gen AI Twin is like a virtual twin of a big group of your employees, a big group, not one, in any roles. It can be in finance, it can be in sales, it can be in compliance, it can be in operations, etc. In any roles. The Gen AI Twin perform not minor tasks, but Gen AI Twin perform all the tasks that this group of employees perform from morning to the night to produce output that this group of employees produce. So the Gen AI Twin will produce the same output and preferably with better quality. And the most important thing is that as the Gen AI Twin perform the tasks, it perform the tasks per the unique policy and procedures of that organization. So what we're trying to do is, for the first time, it's not a situation where you use AI, you query, you prompt them to get an answer, and you still need to do the work. In arts, we want our AI technology to perform the tasks itself, so that we can help take out the manual and mundane tasks, and then the valuable resources can then be having more time to perform higher value tasks.
Okay, I stayed with you for probably about 90% of that, and I got a bit lost. But I mean, to my head, that sounds like it's not just the manual, repetitive tasks. It is now getting into the space of group tasks and potentially judgmental areas. Is it?
Yes, of course. Of course. So basically I mean, in our workplace, we need to hire this group of people because we need their cognitive capability to make decision for the organization from morning to the night. So the Gen AI twin will be performing the task of this group of people, because the Gen AI twin will now have the cognitive capability and to perform the tasks with and make cognitive decision from morning to night for the organization, per the organization's policy and procedures.
Wow. Wow. Lem, I'm beginning to kind of see, well, I can't see, but the endless possibilities. And I mean, I'm thinking I'm an ex-audit partner. I'm kind of thinking the impact this could have on auditing is really phenomenal. But again, leaving the accountant the headspace and the ability to do other tasks. So it's not taking our jobs. It's just potentially letting us do our jobs in a different way.
Better. So basically, you see, I mean, I used to be with the firm of 3,000-4,000 people, and a lot of time you notice that a lot of their time are being sucked away to perform manual and mundane tasks, where they are important, but may not be as crucial as the key tasks. And because they were, a lot of the resources is taken away, then they have very limited time to really focus on the key tasks. So now what we are saying is that if the technology can help to take away, to perform the manual and mundane tasks, yes, they are important. So whatever that is performed as human will still come in to check, this is good. Yeah, and they are making the right decision per the policies and procedures, per what the organization wants to be performed. And then with all this time that is free up, they can then focus and do a proper audit and do a proper strategy for their client.
Yeah. I get it. And I love it. It's really actually it sparked something in me, and I think there's so much that the educators of today need to take from this. Lem, I'm gonna pull this to a close. I think this has been fascinating, certainly for me, and I hope the listeners have enjoyed it as much as I have. I wanna congratulate you. I think you are an amazing ambassador for our profession. I think you have that mindset that people don't potentially think of when they think of accountants, and that's why I'd love this to be seen by loads and loads of people, because you really are a great ambassador for the profession, and what you are developing and bringing to all facets of business is fantastic. So thank you very much, Lem, for taking the time to speak to us today, and I wish you all the best with arts in the future.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So thanks very much to Lem, and thank you to everybody for listening to us today. I hope you thoroughly enjoyed this. Stay tuned for the next episode of Difference Makers Discuss, where we will be bumping around the globe, interviewing chartered accountant members. Thanks a million. Bye.